All right, guys. So today in class we did our copper lab. So real quickly, I'm just doing a quick recording, going through the steps that we did, so you can see and make observations as the other students were today during their lab. So starting off here, we have a little container. This is our starting material. This is a copper nitrate. Um, if we were doing a real copper cycle, we would have started with pure copper and we can end up with pure copper. But unfortunately, doing so requires us using uh, nitric acid, which releases nitrous gas when it's mixed with the copper. And unfortunately, that's a toxic gas. So we skipped that step and we started with our copper nitrate here. It's a little blue powder. And what we did was we placed this in a beaker. This is just a little sample of our starting material I have here. But we placed it in a beaker with about 25 milliliters of water, and we get this liquid right here. So that was our first step. After this, I have another beaker here. This is some concentrated sodium hydroxide. So I've been using this for the last day. So beaker's a little dirty, but what we did was I have this is a rubber pipette or a plastic pipette, and we're going to take two pipette fulls. So I'm going to fill it twice here, and we put it right into our beaker, and we see a little color change. So that was one. Go with the second one. So we see that we have a little color change in our reaction. So what's happening here is that copper nitrate is interacting with our sodium hydroxide and forming sodium nitrate and copper oxide. So that was our first step. After this, we did a little filtration. So I'm going to go ahead and pause real quick and get that set up. Sorry about that. I said we were doing our filtration. The next step is actually to take our sodium hydroxide and heat it. So I'm going to take that and bring it to a hot plate. So here we can see I've gone ahead and put it on my hot plate, still getting up to temperature. That's why it's our temperature here is flashing. So we're gonna let it heat for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the recording again. Once it starts to change color, I'll start up the recording and we can take a look at it. All right, so our solution here was been heating for a minute. We see that we're starting to get this little black powder start to form as it starts to heat up. What's happening here is that sodium is breaking the sodium hydroxide is breaking down, and now our copper nitrate is interacting and forming copper oxide, which some of you might remember when I was talking about our ionic bonds. Mentioned that oxidation is another name for rust. So rust is specifically for iron. So this is a copper oxide, which is similar. It's the same kind of process, but we can kind of think of this like rust. So I just give it a little stir. We're going to let it heat for a little bit longer, and I'll show you what it looks like when we finish heating. All right, so we've been heating for a couple more minutes now, and we see that it's darkened up a little bit. That dark powder that was forming, it's kind of made us. We still see a little bit of a bluish green, but it's darkened up quite a bit. So we're gonna let it heat for just a little bit longer. It's almost done. We'll let it heat for a little longer, and then we'll go ahead and now we'll move over to that. We're gonna let it cool first, and then we're gonna go ahead and filter it. So show y'all back in a minute. All right, so finished heating up our solution and it's cooled down, and you can see now that we have a kind of a dark powder here at the bottom and a layer of liquid above it, and it's separated out as it's cooled. So our next step, we're going to go ahead and filter this out. That dark powder at the bottom is what we're trying to get. So we're going to try and separate that solid from the liquid. So I'm going to go ahead and set up our filtration setup, and then I'll continue with the next part. All right, so here we see we have a little ring stand set up with a clamp and a funnel up top. Here's another, it's the same kind of funnel, just grabbed another one so we can see it a little bit better. So we're gonna go ahead and filter this out, but our problem is we have a cone-shaped funnel. This is our filter paper. So we have to shape our filter paper in a way that can better fit into our funnel. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go and fold it in half first. We're going to fold that in half, fold it once, fold it twice, and we're going to go ahead and fold it a third time into a nice little triangle here. So we're going to be doing what is called a gravity filtration. Unfortunately, our labs are not set up for a vacuum filtration, so we have to settle with a gravity filtration, which is a little bit slower. So after we folded up our filter paper, we're going to unfold it. So now we have these nice little triangle shapes folded into our filter paper. So we're going to take two of them, pinch them together, fold them over like such, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to take another two. Sometimes the second side's a little bit more difficult. Pinch them over. Do it over here. So now it doesn't want to fold very well. All right, so now we've folded. We have a nice little triangular shape, and we can go ahead and place this into our funnel like so. But our funnel still has some space. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse this with a little bit of water real quick, and I'll show you what happens when we rinse our filter paper. All right, so I went ahead and rinsed our filter paper, and we see that now it's nice and tight up against the walls of our funnel, which is what we want. So we don't want any of our solid possibly getting under that filter paper and slipping through our funnel. So we want to get a nice, good seal around our seal between our filter paper and our funnel. So now we're going to go ahead and I'm actually just going to go and replace this with our other one because this was just a fill-in, doesn't have a filter paper. So now our funnel is set up. We're going to grab a flask. Grab a flask real quickly. All right, so now I've gone ahead and set up our filtration system. We have our funnel with the filter paper and our flask to collect the liquid underneath. So taking our solution here, going to go ahead and pour it in. And we'll see that our liquid starts dripping through. Really quickly, you can see inside of our funnel. Here is that the black powder that we have from our solution. It's going to take a little while for this to filter through. So we have to wait for all of our liquid. We still have a little bit left in our flask, our beaker over there. So as this liquid goes down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and fill it up a little bit more. This is probably the longest step of this experiment. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording again. And after everything is filtered through and all the liquid's gone, I'll go ahead and start it back up and we can continue with the next step. All right, so it's been about 20-25 minutes or so of filtering. As I said, gravity filtration is a little bit of a longer step. So on the left here, I have a graduated cylinder with some sulfuric acid that we'll be adding in. Inside our flask here, down here at the bottom, this is just waste, where it's nothing that we want. What we want is here up top. So real quickly, I can show you inside that funnel. So we can see that all that brownish black sludge that we had at the bottom of our beaker after we heat it up, it's all caught in our flask here. So we've got what we wanted. It's up top. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in that sulfuric acid. This is a pretty quick step. So let me reposition. There we go. So adding in actually before I add it in, got to switch out our beaker at the bottom because what we want next is actually going to be a liquid, not a solid. So we have to get rid of this flask, switch it out for a new one. So I've gone ahead and switched out our flask. We got a new empty flask now. It's nice and clean. Here's our old one. It's got our waste liquid. We are going to have some more waste liquid later on, so we're not quite getting rid of this yet. We'll dispose all of it at once. So moving that over to the side. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in that sulfuric acid. So we're just going to slowly pour it into our top here. So we've added in all of our sulfuric acid. We'll see it start dripping through now. Slowly dripping. So this one's a little bit quicker, so I'm not going to pause the recording this time. Just going to let it go. Should take about 2 minutes. We can see at the bottom, we're starting to see a little bit of that liquid. It's a light blue. So as that comes through, you can see that color showing a little bit better. Now we're getting more of our liquid, and it's starting to speed up. So, like I said, this is a pretty quick step, that sulfuric acid, because now we're getting a liquid. We don't have to worry about it getting caught up in our filter. So we are still um, using the filter because the filter had what we wanted before. It had that copper oxide. Now we don't have copper oxide in the bottom here. That copper oxide is interacting with our sulfuric acid, and now we're getting copper sulfate. So that's where we're getting that blue liquid from now at the bottom. And if we look up top in our funnel, all that sludge is gone. So still see a little bit left, but we got that blue liquid filtering through because that copper oxide is all gone, or oxide is all gone now. We have our copper sulfate. So we're going to wait for that to finish filtering out. So we're just about done filtering. While that was filtering, I went ahead and got our last step. This is, put the camera down a little bit. This is zinc powder. So this is pure zinc metal in a powder form that after we're done filtering here, we're going to add in this powder. So let's take just a couple more seconds. This is like a few drops coming through, and then we'll add in our zinc. So at this point, our copper sulfate has dripped through. Might get another drip here or there coming up. There comes one. But if we look up top, most of our liquid's gone. So we can go ahead and move on to our next step. So we're going to pull our funnel because we're not going to need this for this next step. Just going to place this right here for now. And we're going to take our flask, reposition the camera a little bit. And now we're going to go ahead and add in our zinc powder. So what's going to happen here is our zinc metal, it's more reactive. So this copper sulfate, our zinc is going to come in and take the position of our copper, and we'll see our copper metal being kicked out of solution. So adding in our zinc powder, starts to foam up. That's our reaction taking place. You might see a little bit of a smoke coming up, some fumes. See a little bit on the camera. So we've seen our zinc reacting. So now you can see, got a little powder here. That is
Very
our
nice.
copper.
Excellent.
So inside, and you got that liquid. So we're going to filter one last time to get our copper out. All right, so on to our final step now. So here, this was our waste bottle from before. I just placed it back under because now we have our copper here. We can see our copper floating around. Unfortunately, the camera doesn't show as well, but it's a nice reddish brown color. And that's what we want. We don't want our liquid. So this is waste liquid anyway. We got waste liquid in here. We're going to dispose of it all. So we can go ahead and pour it in. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour in our solution here. Pour right up top. Thankfully, got all of our copper out. We don't have any left in here. If we did, we could fill this up with a little bit of water, rinse off that last little bit, and you can see some little specks of copper, but not enough to really affect it too much. So again, this last step, this last filtration is pretty quick. We can see our waste flask here. It's starting to cloud up a little bit. That's just because we got a couple of different things in there. We had the sodium nitrate from before. Now we have our zinc sulfate in there. So things are probably interacting. It's all going to be waste, nothing dangerous in there. As soon as we're done, I've got a container for waste materials, just going to pour it in there and I'll dispose of it later. So we'll just wait for this to go ahead and finish filtering. It's not going to take too long. So just like before, I'm just going to keep the recording going so you can watch the filtration, watch the drops. So we finished filtering. Again, we might get a couple drops here and there as we have a little bit of liquid left in there. But if we look in our funnel, got just about all of our liquid, and we can still see that nice color of the copper. We can see it a little bit better now, that brownish red color. So we're going to go ahead and pull our filter paper out real quick. There's our copper again. Let's go ahead and take our filter paper out. Oh, a little bit of liquid still in there. So we can see there's our copper. I'll go ahead and let this dry for a little bit. Gonna put it on a paper towel, let it dry out. But as that's drying, it's probably gonna take a little while to dry. I'll show you. Here's some filters from earlier today from my 5th and 6th period. Got a pretty good collection of copper. And then back here, this is from yesterday. This is some of the copper powder that's dried up from my other classes, my 1st, 2nd, and 3rd period. So got a pretty good collection of copper. We didn't start off with a whole lot of copper, so it's expected that we didn't end up with a whole lot. So pretty good extraction. Everybody did pretty well. We got some pretty good extractions, and that's it for this lab. I might start doing this in the future for other labs in case people miss it or they want to go back and watch it again. So um, make sure that when you're writing your lab notebooks, like I said, I am picking these up for a grade, these lab notebooks. So make sure you have everything from your title, the purpose of the lab, the materials, and the procedures, all of which are already on course. So write all those down. Procedure's a little long. This is a little bit of a more detailed lab. As you've seen, all these steps that we've gone through, at about 20 minutes of my recording, I'm looking at my timer. But like I said, we had about 20-25 minutes of filtering that first filtration step, spent about 5 minutes heating it up. So it's a little bit of a longer lab. So procedure's a little long. Sorry, but you're going to have to write them all down. And then observations from this recording, step by step, make a little observation of what's happening. So that's it for this lab. If y'all have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. If not, good luck writing your lab notebooks, and I'll see y'all later.